Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast. Quick picks video for UFC 316. Merab Dvalishvili taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley 2. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down the entire card in 15 minutes or less. Confident level traffic light system at the bottom. And let's get right into the early prelims of Andreas Gustafsson taking on Chaos Williams, and I'm going to ever so slightly lean to Chaos Williams here. Gustafsson obviously was meant to fight last week at the Apex, now being moved to this pay-per-view event. Gustafsson comes out like a wild man. He likes to get in the clinch. He likes to throw elbows up against the fence. He's even admitted that he's not very technical. He just likes to get into a brawl. And the guy is an absolute wild man. He does have a Greco-Roman background. However, he does openly admit that he doesn't like to use his wrestling. He just likes to fight and scrap. And we've seen with Chaos Williams, he is very athletic. He does have power in his hands, and he does like to use them. I'd like to see him use straight shots here to find the chin of Gustafsson as he comes in wild. I do think if Chaos stays composed here, he can definitely find the better strikes, maybe even land and get a knockout here against Gustafsson. It is hard to trust, however, because we've seen with Chaos Williams in his last fight, he was taken down and controlled and submitted. So Gustafsson might come in here and look for those takedowns. I do think that Chaos sometimes does dive in a little bit wild and reckless at times. If he stays composed here, I like him to find the chin and ultimately have the better striking moments here. So give me Chaos Williams here in a slight lean to get it done in the first fight. And next up, we have Markel Medeiros taking on Mark Quinsky, and Quinsky is pretty much a wrestler. He trains over with the Pettis brothers, Jordan Newman from Bellator, and Rafael Stoltz, so a lot of high-level wrestlers, and that's pretty much his game plan. He likes to come in, he likes to pressure on the feet, and pretty much just go for takedowns. And we saw in Medeiros' last fight that he can be taken down, he can be controlled. Austin Hubbard was able to have success with that. However, Medeiros' striking, his counter-striking ability, I think will be a big factor here. I think he is probably the better striker in this matchup. And we saw with Mark that his level of competition up until this point hasn't been very good. I think this is a big step up in competition. Medeiros is definitely the higher level striker. At least he's fought, inside the UFC, 2-0 currently in the UFC. So only a slight lean for me, as I do feel that Medeiros does fight to the level of his competition. So he might make this one a little bit closer than it needs to be. And there is a lot of question marks around Mark's level of competition and how good he actually is. So we'll find out in his UFC debut on Saturday. Slight lean to Medeiros here to get it done with the striking. And next up, we have Quinlan Sakild coming off of that really nice knockout of Jubilee in the first round, taking on Yanil Ajmus. And give me Sakild here. I think that he's the much more rangy kickboxer. He has a nice rip to the body. He can mix in takedowns. I think the length here and the better technique on the feet is going to be all that counts here for Sakild. Ajmus is pretty decent. He does have nice wrestling, but I think he struggles to set up his striking. We saw against Trevor Peek, he was able to get the takedowns, but I don't think he's going to be able to get that wrestling going here against Sakild. I think this fight's mostly going to play out on the feet, and I think the much more technical kickboxer here in Sakild gets it done, rips to the body, nice kicks, keeps the fight at range, and uses his length and his striking. Medium level confidence here in Sakild to get it done. And next up, we have Brenderson Ribeiro taking the place of Johnny Walker, one chinny Brazilian to another, as he takes on Azamat Murzakanov, and a very confident level pick here for Azamat Murzakanov. I think Murzakanov gets this done inside the distance. I think he's probably going to find a finish in the first 2 rounds. He's got very nice striking, very nice uppercuts, very fast hands for a guy that you wouldn't look at and think that he has fast striking and explosive ability. Nice step-in knees as well. He also trains over in Dagestan from time to time to work on his wrestling. He undefeated 14-0, should be 15-0 here in my opinion at the weekend. I think he gets it done inside the distance, and we've seen with Ribeiro that he is finishable. He's definitely chinny, and I don't necessarily think that he's UFC level. He has won his last 2 fights, however, they haven't been against the highest level of competition. So give me Azamat here, confident level pick to get it done inside the distance. And next up, we have Ju Sang Yu taking on Jakar Saragi. And to me, Saragi just isn't UFC level here. I think that he's going to get mopped and dropped, probably finished on the feet. And after seeing Yu's highlight tapes and kind of video study this week, he's very, very impressive on the feet. He fights out of South Korea. He's on part of the Korean Zombies promotion. So fought over there and also fought in Brave FC, which is not necessarily a bad level of competition. On the feet, he likes to use spinning kicks. He likes nice head kicks, and he also has a nice counter right hand that he likes to throw. He does exit the pocket with his hands down at times and his chin up in the air, but he is very fast on the feet. He can mix in takedowns as well. And to me, Saragi just isn't UFC level. He got submitted in his last fight against Wilson, who is more of a striker than a grappler. He looked out of his depths on the feet. Jubilee was able to take him down and ground and pound him. And to be honest with you, I just don't see a path to victory here against Yu. He's very impressive on the feet and the ground. And I also think as well that he'll probably get this done inside the distance. Obviously not a full green level pick here, not a full confidence level pick here for Yu because it is making his UFC debut. But I do think that this is pretty much a step down in competition for him. I think he gets the finish here, whether it be on the feet or on the ground. And next up, we have Sergey Spivak taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta. And give me Cortez Acosta here. I think that the Spivak train has kind of come to a halt. We saw in his last fight against Jolton Almeida that he was taken down, reversed, and ultimately finished once the fight got back to the feet. 4 of Spivak's losses out of the 5 have all come him getting chinned. I think Waldo Cortez Acosta's boxing is going to be too much for him here. Cortez coming off that win against Ryan Spann. He was able to get the knockout there in the second round. His boxing is impressive. I do think that Spivak, would have a lot of success getting this fight into the clinch and getting the takedowns, dragging Waldo Cortez Acosta to the ground. I do think if this fight hits the ground, it's going to be Spivak's fight, but that's why I'm not necessarily too confident in Acosta, but I do think that the striking and the boxing of Cortez Acosta is going to be a little bit better here than Spivak on the feet. Spivak's come in and looked in decent shape in his last couple of fights, but they haven't necessarily gone his way, especially in the Jolton Almeida fight. But give me Waldo Cortez Acosta here to get it done with the boxing. Only a slight lean, however, because I'm not necessarily that high on Cortez Acosta since he's joined the UFC to begin with. And next up, we have Wang Kong here as a confident level pick taking on Ariane Lipski. I think that this just comes down to striker versus world level striker. And I think that Kong knows that she's the better striker in most of her matchups. She likes to keep fights on the feet. She's a decorated Muay Thai practitioner, been having heated back and forths with Valentina Shevchenko throughout her career when it comes to the striking affair. We saw that, she does kind of feel herself and she has been caught in previous fights, but I don't think Ariane Lipski packs the same kind of punch and the same kind of firepower that Kong's going to have to worry about. I think if Ariane Lipski comes out and tries to go for a takedown, should be best served, but I do think that Kong keeps this one on the feet here and is able to win the striking exchanges. We've seen with Lipski that she does get taken down in fights, but Kong's not going to have to worry about that. She's just going to beat her up on the feet. So give me Kong here as a confident level pick, and I think the Joker has her way. And next up, we have Bruno Silva taking on Joshua Van, and I think Joshua Van gets this done here. Bruno Silva, 35 years of age at this point. In a lot of the lower weight classes, the older guys do tend to struggle, especially with the speed, which was very evident in Bruno Silva's last fight against Manil Kopp. He struggled with the speed of Kopp, and I expect him to struggle with the striking here of Joshua Van. I think if Silva can get this fight to the floor, he can have success. However, Van has shown that he's got good takedown defense. He's got volume in the boxing. He's got a good ability to fight behind the jab, throwing combinations, and really just show, even though he's only 23, 24 years of age, that he's always improving. And he looks pretty impressive. He's been on a run. Apart from his 1 KO loss to Charles Johnson, he's looked fantastic. So I think Van keeps this one on the feet, medium level confidence here, and he's able to win a 3-round high volume, high pace decision here with the striking. And next up, we have Mario Batista taking on Patchy Mix, the Bellator debutant here in the UFC. I like Patchy Mix in this matchup. I think Mario Batista's got good kickboxing. I think he's got decent BJJ, but I think he lacks the wrestling here. I think Mix at some point is going to be able to either take his back or go for a single leg, a double leg, and just be able to get this fight to the ground. And I think once this fight's on the ground, that's going to be all she wrote. Patchy Mix is a very, very high-level BJJ practitioner. I think he's going to be able to find the submission here. And I do think if this fight stays on the feet, that Mix is going to kind of be the lesser of the two in the striking department. However, I do think this fight is going to hit the mat at some point, and Patchy Mix is going to be able to find the submission here. Medium level confidence in Patchy Mix to get off in the win column here inside the UFC. And next up, we have Kevin Holland taking on Vicente Luque. And I think Vicente Luque is definitely live here. It's hard to trust Kevin Holland in a lot of his fights, as we well know. But this fight taking place at 170, I think that Kevin Holland defends the takedowns at 170 much better than he does at 185. Vicente Luque does have power in the hands. He likes that front choke series, the anacondas, the darces. However, Kevin Holland's very, very credentialed in the BJJ department himself. I think the range and the striking here of Kevin Holland is what's going to be the difference maker here. I think that Kevin keeps this one on the feet, uses his range, uses his jab, uses his long limbs, and it is also hard to trust Vicente Luque after that brain bleed that he had a couple of years ago. So I think this one stays on the feet and give me Kevin Holland to get it done in the striking. But how confident can you be in a Kevin Holland fight, right? And next up, we have Calvin Gastelum taking on Joe Pyfer. Be Joe Pyfer, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to be Joe Pyfer, and we're going to pick Joe Pyfer here in a confident level matchup here against Calvin Gastelum. I think wherever this fight goes, I think Joe Pyfer can have success. I don't think Calvin Gastelum takes his career that seriously at this point. He misses weight, and even that last fight that they were meant to have back at UFC Mexico, this rescheduled for now, UFC 316. Calvin Gastelum got sick. I think Joe Pyfer comes in here, and I think he can mix in the wrestling if he wants to. He's the more athletic striker. He's got harder hitting punches. And I also just like this fight pretty much for Pyfer to kind of get a little bit of revenge for that last fight being cancelled due to Calvin Gastelum. I think he gets his revenge here as a confident pick here for Joe Pyfer, getting this one done on the feet. He might even knock out Calvin Gastelum with the power in his hands. And next up, we have the co-main event. We have Kayla Harrison taking on Juliana Pena. And I think we see that the champ lose her belt here. I think Juliana Pena is not necessarily that skilled. When she throws her punches, her elbows are way up in the air. She is very tough. She is very durable. So I think if this fight gets later on, I think she's definitely live. But I think Kayla Harrison comes out here with a point to prove. Two-time judo gold medalist. She's very, very jacked. She's very a physical specimen, even in the women's division. And she comes out. I think she gets the judo throws here. I think she gets top control, lands elbows. You have to remember, most of her career in the PFL, she's not allowed to use elbows. I think she puts those elbows in Juliana Pena's mouth here and gets the TKO finish inside the first 3 rounds. Give me Kayla Harrison and New here in the bantamweight division. And I think we have a problem here for the bantamweight division as Kayla Harrison's title reign starts. And next up, we had the main event, Sugar Sean O'Malley taking on Merab Dvalishvili. And give me Sugar Sean, man. I think he gets revenge here against Merab. We obviously know Merab has that toe injury. I don't think that's going to play too much of a factor. I think it might affect his movement maybe later on in the fight. But I think Sean comes in. I think he's dialed in. I think he's focused. He's quit smoking. He's dropped social media. He's got some great training partners throughout his camp. Demetrius Johnson, Israel Adesanya. And I just think the length and I think the striking here is going to play a big factor now that he's healthy and doesn't have that hip injury. In their last fight, he wasn't able to go southpaw a whole lot. Sean loves to switch stances and throw straight shots down the middle. A lot of those weapons were taken away, and I think that his ability to keep this fight on the feet is going to be tenfold compared to the last fight, especially now that he can wrestle in camp. So give me Sean O'Malley here to get it done in the striking, and I like him here again and New to win his title back at UFC 316. And as always, like I always say, guys, check out some of our other videos on the channel. We have my Dog of the Week video and the full card breakdown that Carlos and I do, which is a more detailed breakdown of each individual matchup. My Dog of the Week video is my favorite betting underdog. Check that out. Full highlight reel tape, and the link should be popping up on your screen any moment now for both of those videos. Check that out. And if you're enjoying the content here, as I always say, subscribe to the channel. You know who you are. You know who you haven't hit that button and you're watching all these videos. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. 15 minutes or less. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.